This is the Gen Y Leaders Podcast. Welcome to the Gen Y Leaders Podcast, where we guide millennials to become the next generation of business leaders and entrepreneurs. I'm your host, Eric Huey, and multiple times a month, we bring you interviews from high-performing millennials who are challenging perceptions and changing expectations of our generation. Our mission is to help you overcome fear, take action, and go confidently in the direction of your dreams. It's time to start preparing now, mainly because 10,000 baby boomers are retiring every day, which will create a vacuum of career opportunities that you've been waiting for. Will you be ready? Connor, what's up, my man?
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good, all things considered.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for taking the time to be on the Gen Y Leaders Podcast. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I'm so happy. Thanks for reaching out.
For sure. If you could just tell the audience who you are and what you do.
Yeah, I'm waving for those that can't see. Hey, everyone. I'm Connor Montgomery. I like to say that I build things that make your day better. Actually, currently, what do I do? Currently, I'm a full-time dad, thanks to COVID.
Yeah.
But recently, I left Pinterest after about 7.5 years there. While I was there, when I joined, we were about 50 people. When I left, we were about just over 2,000. Kind of got to see that growth, which was really exciting. But while I was there, I was a full stack software engineer, helped to write the web app, the iOS app, shipped dozens of features to hundreds of millions of pinners, helped start the New York office. I was the first engineer in that office. Managed some teams, led some cross-company R&D efforts. And then most recently in February, of course, my timing was impeccable leading up to a global pandemic, but most recently in February, decided that, the gas tank was empty and I was ready to do something else. And then, curveball, COVID was thrown.
Of course.
But, these days I'm a full-time dad. And to stay sane during naps, nights, and weekends, I'm hacking on a new thing with some friends of mine that I'm happy to talk about a little bit later if we'd like. But yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I look forward to talking a little more about that new endeavor. That's exciting.
Totally.
For those who are in Kansas City, I'm wearing my Royals polo. For those who are not watching, Connor is the son of Jeff Montgomery, a former Kansas City Royals pitcher and now broadcaster, for those who are familiar with him.
I've got his bobblehead up here right behind me. It was really great. Like growing up, he'd take me to the ballpark every chance that he got. I remember skipping school some days for opening day, which is like right around my birthday, which was always really fun, bringing some buddies to the ballpark. But yeah, we're back in KC now. It's great to bring my boy around grandpa.
Definitely. What was that like growing up with a star dad athlete and following and somewhat in that footstep, and then you pivoted at one point to go the business route, right?
I did. Yeah, man. It's funny, like, growing up, everyone always asks, like, what's it like to have a dad who's, on the Royals or something? And, my dad's an accountant or, not a professional athlete. And my answer is like, I don't know. It's my dad. Like, what am I supposed to, what I will say is, if you look at like Pat Mahomes, right? And everyone talks about like his leadership under pressure, and, they kind of chalk a lot of that up to exposure to kind of larger than life athletes when he was younger. I had a similar experience, right? Like seeing Jermaine Dye or Mike Sweeney or Johnny Damon, just like talk to me like I'm a friend of theirs was just, an incredible thing looking back as now a 30-year-old, but like when I was 7, like that was really cool. And so like fast forward to kind of my business or software life now. And that's like, I can go meet a billionaire and like not be intimidated by them. Just because I've kind of ironed those kinks out, if you will. But what was like, it was great. Grew up playing ball. I was supposed to play ball. Kind of had the expectation to go play college ball. And in high school, I was good, but not great. I went to Rockhurst, played ball there. And, I think I definitely had an opportunity to play in college, largely due to my last name. But that was probably it.
Yeah.
And my then girlfriend, now wife, was obviously really important to me. And my dad sat me down one day. We were actually on our way home from a Creighton showcase. I was looking to go play at Creighton. And he sat me down. I was like, Con, Mackenzie, I can see that, she's really important to you. I would, I'd consider kind of staying with her, and baseball will really get in the way of that.
Yeah.
And, I kind of read between the lines, I'm 5'10", weigh 150,
Yeah.
could throw maybe 80 on a good day. Like, I'm not the natural talent that he had. But yeah, during high school, I kind of switched interests, if you will, over to computers.
Yeah. Very cool. That's I think really noble of your dad, who is obviously, a star athlete and broadcaster, to sit down and, level with you and say that,
Totally.
if you want this relationship over, the game, then you should definitely pursue it. So
absolutely.
Kudos to him.
And also like he's totally honest when you talk to him about, the minor leagues or anything. Like, it's hard, it's grueling, they're paid hardly anything. They're traveling at, Will's notice, living in literal strangers' houses and all that. And so, it's definitely like, once you make it to the other side, it's great, but it's not all, not always a rosy journey.
Yeah.
And so it's that being the athlete that I was and not my father, that was kind of more what I was looking at.
Yep. And I remember from our first conversation, so deciding to give up baseball wasn't your only real bold decision, if you will. I remember you saying in college that, you essentially hit a burnout point and were almost probably teaching the professors there, to a certain degree. Talk a little bit about that and your decision to leave school.
Definitely. So, I say dropped out. That's giving up more credit than it's due. I took a very calculated risk and withdrew from college, basically my junior year. And so I went to St. Louis U in St. Louis. My wife went to WashU in St. Louis. So we were about 15 minutes apart. And, going into it, I don't know why, but going into it, I just kind of went like general business with a minor in journalism. I was on the Rockers journalism team, the Prep News, and I kind of fell in love with it. That was my first love outside of baseball. And, kind of realized like business school just wasn't for me. I was spending all night working on open source software, kind of teaching friends how to program and stuff like that, or just building things for fun. So at SLU, I switched to computer science, and, SLU's CS program was pretty small at the time. And, they taught some really like great introductory programming languages. But what I noticed was that like past that 101 level, it was very much lacking on like the practical side. It was way more on the theoretical side. And as someone who had been self-taught, something I left out a little bit earlier is like I started teaching myself to code when I was, 10 or 11 or so. My dad studied my dad studied computer science. So we kind of had books laying around, and my older sister was an artist. And so, I always wanted to make things, but I wasn't as good at design or art that she was. And so this was kind of my outlet. So anyways, I kind of had this like practical experience from building applications. And so, there would be many instances in class where the teacher would give an answer and I'd raise my hand and be like, that's not quite right. Like this is actually how it works. And it got to a point where, where occasionally they'd be asked a question, and they just kind of look at me and they'd be like, okay, I know this, or, hey, I actually don't know this. So
you're paying the school so you can teach them.
Yeah, totally. And it's literally though, like when, I called my dad when, like I said, I took a very calculated risk to withdraw. Kind of a long story. We may get into some of that a little bit, but I remember when I was entertaining, I had a couple of offers. I remember when I was entertaining the Pinterest offer with another offer, I was talking to my dad, and he's like, Con, you can pay to go to school and learn from these professors, which frankly, like SLU is a wonderful school, but it's not Stanford, it's not MIT. But like go to this, Midwestern school, or you can go work at a company that everyone in the world knows at and be paid more than twice what we're paying your tuition.
Yeah.
He's like, to me, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Just like, it's fiscally irresponsible not to do this.
Yeah. The writing was definitely on the walls.
Yeah, they're totally. And it turns out, like, I joke to people, like, that was the second best decision I ever made, dropping out next to asking my wife to marry me. So
Yep.
like, can't, looking back, like it sounds scary, sounds daunting, but at the end of the day, like it was pretty calculated, and it made sense.
Definitely sounds like it. Talk a little bit about that once you quit and, headed out there to California and, all the offers that you had on the table and kind of getting settled in out there.
Yeah, definitely. So before I get to that, I have to rewind just a little bit. So that was junior year. That was the summer after, that was basically the summer leading into senior year. Mm-hmm. I say junior year because I had taken a semester off. So I was going to graduate late had I stayed. But anyways, if we rewind just a little bit, in 2011, I was in school. I'd been in school for a couple of years. I was working on a bunch of side projects, and I posted on this programmers community called Hacker News. It's really a startups community. It used to be more of a programmers community. Now it's a startups community. I was like, hey, I want to come out to the Bay Area. This is what I know. This is what I'm interested in. Here's my email. I'll be an intern. Yeah. And this guy writes me like a novel of a response. It's massive. But it literally came like 60 minutes after I made the post. So like the timing just worked out. Yeah. And he writes this email. And then like the last paragraph is from this guy named Tony Stubblebine, really funny last name, but his name's Tony. Last paragraph is like, oh, I should probably like prove that I'm legit. I've written a book by O'Reilly, which O'Reilly is kind of like the canonical, like high quality technical book. Okay. He worked at O'Reilly too. So he's like, and also I was the head of engineering at Odeo, which is the company that Twitter spun out of. Wow. So like Jack Dorsey was my intern. Oh my God. And so I'm like, oh, okay, this guy's cool. Yeah. So I start working, this is February. I start working with him on some projects while I'm in school, just kind of during nights and weekends and class, but don't tell anyone. And, he's like, hey, this is working out great. Do you want to come out to SF for the summer? I'm like, yes, great. How much should I get paid? He's like, well, I'll pay you $15 an hour. I'm like, whoa, that's a ton. Like, I'm living in St. Louis. That's so much more than all my friends will make. It's minimum wage in San Francisco now. I don't know if that's what it was then, but like, it's pretty close. Okay. So I lied to my mom and told her that I was going to make $30 an hour to let her to let me go out there. Yeah. I went out there. I stayed in like a rundown Airbnb, cockroaches, had one of those bead doors. Oh yeah. That was my door. My wife has never seen that Airbnb that I stayed in. Probably a good thing. But, yeah, right. But I was working with Tony, and I was learning. And they're like, from here, it's just like, it's a really fun kind of roller coaster ride. But I walk in, I go to our office, and the office is in San Francisco. It's at about 2nd and New Montgomery Street is kind of the intersection. And he's been talking up like the owner of this building for a bit, Mitch and Frida Kapor. So unless you're in the technology space, you've probably never heard of them. Frida is actually from Kansas City. Oh, wow. So Mitch invented the spreadsheet. Oh, okay. Right. So I didn't know that, but he built a company called Lotus 123. That was their first spreadsheet. Wow. So, they're a very wealthy couple. They angel invest. They're incredibly active in the Oakland community. Frida is just like an incredible philanthropist. They're wonderful people. They also have like a remarkable art collection that they kind of stuff throughout the office. Anyway, so that's our office. Tony is advising some of the companies that they've invested in return for free office space. Wow. So I'm like showing up to this every day. And like, lo and behold, I walk in, this is like June, a random day in June. I walk in and this guy's sitting in my seat. And I'm like, oh, I know you. You're Ev Williams. Oh, wow. It's the founder of Twitter, the guy who started, the Odeo CEO. So Tony had that connection from back in the day. But anyways, like, going back to that, not being starstruck, like I just shook his hand and started talking about what we were building with him, which was really fun. Yeah. I don't want to ramble too much, but long story short, that was kind of the jumping point of, what the next 9 years would look like. Yeah.
That's amazing. Thanks for sharing those stories. I think if there's a theme thus far into our interview, I'd say the ability to make bold decisions or get past fear. Because you pivoted and you gave up baseball 1, 2 gave up school 3. Yeah. took this, on a whim and lied to your mom.
Totally. Yeah. Right. Well, and yeah, I mean, it's like hindsight is always 2020.
Yeah.
Like at the time of making the decision, you're just like, I don't know, like, we'll see. Like at the time I was 21, there was really no reason not to do it. Funny side note. I do remember that I had just turned 21 because I went out there that summer. It was in May and my birthday's in April. I went up to a bartender. It was the first time I was with Tony. I went up to a bartender and I was like, hey, Tony, I'll get you a drink. What do you want? He's like, I'll have a gin and tonic. Okay. So I go up, I order a Budweiser and a gin and tonic, and I give the bartender a $10 bill, and they laugh and say, that'll be $18. So that's when I knew that I was in San Francisco.
Yeah. Well, welcome to California.
Yeah. Right.
Brutal.
Anyways,
yeah.
So
in addition to the kind of theme of making bold decisions, one, I guess, prompt question, if you will, that I ask guests is, if you had a room full of 100 fellow entrepreneurs or just, young business-minded professionals, what would you tell them, or, how would you inspire them? Does anything come to mind in particular for you?
Totally. That's a really good question. And, I know you asked all of your guests that. So let me preface by saying I've got like 6 answers to this.
Yeah.
But if there's just one, it's going to sound like corny, overused advice. But if there was just one thing that I would say, it's do the thing.
Yeah.
Don't talk about it. Don't research it. Don't think about doing it. Just do the thing. And so I've got this saying that I, whenever I'm building a new thing or working on a team, kind of starting from scratch, kind of my specialty is basically taking something, going from 0 to 1. Like we've got nothing, we want a new product. Let's get it from 0 to 1. Yeah. That's kind of my niche. So what I like to say is baby steps, right? Like baby steps. A lot of littles makes a lot. Just like, let's stop, let's cut through all the noise and just go. And so if there was a room full of 100 millennials, honestly, what I would do, I would have a keynote with like one slide, tightly kerned, bold, 102-point font Helvetica. And it would just say, do the thing. And that's it. And like, I wouldn't even say a word. Like, it would just be that. And I'd be like, okay, let's have drinks.
Yeah. Mic drop. Easiest
speech ever. I didn't graduate. I can be informal. Here we go.
You're right. Exactly. That's awesome. Great tip. I love that. So I'm really curious, and I'm sure the viewers or listeners are too, about your time at Pinterest. You're our first guest that's ever had kind of that big tech experience. I've had one guest on that worked on at Facebook for a brief time, but to have the longevity that you've had at a company like that, and to, furthermore, to be at the what can be considered the ground level of Pinterest as it got on its growth trend. I would love just to kind of hear more about how you got involved in it, what that corporate environment was like, especially as it was growing, and then maybe what ultimately led you to the decision to leave.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it makes sense to start at the beginning. So kind of how we got there. While I was working with Tony, I didn't really have any friends because I was the youngest one out there. Everyone else that was my age was still in school. And so I was just working on side projects outside of my real work. And what I did was I'd make things and I'd email people who I thought they were interested in it, or I'd tweet at people who I thought they'd be interested in it. And so I made this thing for this domain search engine called Domainer. I made a Chrome extension for it. So you could like search via Chrome, right? Instead of going to the website. I sent it to them. Well, it turns out 2 of the people that started it were part of the founding team at Square, the company that Jack Dorsey started, right?
Yeah.
So they, bring me in, we have lunch. They're very good friends of mine now. I was official part of the team, even though it's like a side project for them. Mm-hmm. So anyways, another person, like the one that wasn't part of Square, was early at this company called Rdio. For those who aren't familiar, think of it like Spotify, but better designed and built in America instead of started in Sweden, which is what Spotify was. But brought me into Rdio, and I met this guy named Josh. And Josh is from Kansas City. He actually had a Kansas City Royals themed Visa card from like Commerce Bank or something, but he was living in SF, right? And so, he knew my dad, or knew of my dad. And Josh and I became really good friends. And I was actually supposed to intern at Rdio the following summer. Long story short, I backed out of that and took an Apple offer before I even started the Rdio offer. So the Rdio company, there are a couple of people there that were not happy with that.
Yeah.
But at the time, Josh had quit RDO and joined the small company called Pinterest.
Oh, wow.
So this connection that I had burritos with a year and a half before
No
was
kidding.
employee number 12 at this like fledgling company.
That's
And
incredible.
so Josh is kind of the in that I had. But anyways, I joined as the youngest person on the engineering team. And what was it like? Like, honestly, it was incredible in every way, shape, and form. It was intense. It changed every week. I think when I joined, we had maybe 12 million monthly active users to be exact. When I left, we had about 300 million monthly active users. And just like to see, there's like this saying, right? If you're offered a seat on the spaceship, don't ask which seat, just get on, right?
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like that. I remember actually I sat down my first day, and Ben, our CEO, was in the desk next to me. Why? I don't know.
Yeah.
Because like that desk was open.
Yeah.
So I mean, there are so many stories or kind of tangible experiences that I'll take away. But I think one of the mottos that we had at Pinterest was progress.
Mm-hmm.
Always is better than perfection.
Yeah.
So going back to just like do the thing, baby steps, a lot of littles makes a lot, like just go forward. Facebook's whole like move fast and break things, like that's kind of the ethos of Silicon Valley, if you will.
Yeah.
And so,
And then what made you ultimately leave? And
that's a good question. When I joined Pinterest, I never expected it to be like a long-term career thing. I just thought I was very much in the like, what am I looking for now?
Yeah.
Why did I decide to leave? Honestly, we were just a little bit too big. I think I'm, for those that can't see, I'm in a hoodie, gym shorts, and a baseball cap. Like I'm a very casual person. And Pinterest was a real company now, and it was in good hands. But my gas tank was just empty. Like I had done a lot. I had been tech lead. I had managed. I had helped start a New York office. I had worked remotely. I had done a lot, and just kind of felt like this is a little bit of a tangent. I'll be quick, but like my dad obviously was like a premier athlete, right? Like he wore his work on his sleeve because he had to. He loved it. He loves it. But like there was not a day in the year where he was on vacation. He never had French fries. Like he would never have fried food. He always abided to a diet, right?
Yeah.
Like it was very much a full-time 365 days a year 24/7 job.
Yeah.
That's a lot like how I work. And I think I get a lot of my work ethic from him. But like there were several weeks during my first year at Pinterest where I would pull multiple all-nighters in a week. Part of that was because I felt like I had to earn my stripes because I was the youngest person on the team.
Yeah.
And part of it was just like true, oh shoot, what's the phrase? Where you feel like you don't deserve it. Imposter syndrome.
Yep.
A lot of it was imposter syndrome. Like I remember when I got hired on my first day of orientation. At the time, I was in a group of 6 people. This was the largest incoming group of new hires that they had at the company in the history of the company so far. And sitting next to me was like previously like a VP of engineering on the Kindle.
Yeah. Wow.
And then next to him was like a very high up person from Google search. I'm like, hi, I've taken data structures and algorithms at St. Louis University.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah. That's sounds pretty intense for sure. And it's ironic, or I guess not ironic, but it makes sense. So the person I mentioned earlier, Vineet Prasad, he was back in, I think, the 20s on the episode, but he was the gentleman who worked at Facebook for a time. And he mentioned the exact same thing, imposter syndrome, being at Facebook.
Totally.
It's the only other person that's been on the podcast that's mentioned that phrase. So I think that it definitely has to be apparent at the big tech companies for sure.
Yeah,
I was like,
totally. But I will say, like in the same vein, it's like it's totally not. It's looking like it's totally pointless, honestly.
Yeah.
Like everyone they're so, from my experience at least at Pinterest, everyone was so thoughtful, so welcoming, and just like so eager to help you out.
Yeah.
That imposter syndrome didn't matter. Like we just wanted to make the best product for pinners, which I'm really proud of what we built.
Yeah. probably self-imposed imposter syndrome is probably
100%.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about, working with these big time executives and, CEOs of these large companies and founders of companies. What was that like working with them? And, do you have any like key lessons learned or takeaways from doing so?
Yeah, definitely. So one thing that I forgot to mention earlier, that I think I mentioned on our call, but when I was working with Tony, before we after we'd had that experience at the K4 office, Ev, who was in my chair that one day that I walked in, decided to invest in our company. And, so part of that was office space, and they were building, they were kind of setting up a nice office at about 20th and Mission Street in San Francisco. And in the interim, while that office was being set up, our office was Ev's kitchen. And so it was, yeah, it was cool. And so it was Tony, myself, and then Ev, Biz Stone, who's one of the other co-founders of Twitter. And then what eventually became the Medium team. They were kind of mostly early employees at Twitter or folks that they had met at Google from the Blogger acquisition, that were kind of working there alongside us. So it was just like this group of folks, but I could talk for hours about that. That was super fun. But anyways, like, what did I learn? Like, honestly, you're going to laugh, but like they're people too, right? Yeah. Like there's nothing, they don't walk around with like an aura or a glow. It's just, they're here to do the same job that we are. They've just had some success in the past, and they've got a couple more zeros than we do at the end of our bank accounts. I will say, both Ev and Ben, I didn't interact much with Biz a couple of times. He actually joined Pinterest very briefly towards the end of my time there. But, I'm much closer with Ben than I am with Ev. But the one thing that I really took away from both of them is like, listen. They're both very intent, like they're both exceptional listeners. They show great intent with that. And they're also just able to synthesize a bunch of different inputs into like a concrete, succinct output. It might be wrong, but they're like firm with their decision, and not in a I'm better than you way, not in a I know more than you way, but just in a okay, this is what I think. Yeah. And you can tell them that you think they're wrong, and they'll be open to that, which I love. Yeah. But yeah, it was remarkable how explicit they were about listening. And then also, I remember very early on with Ev, right after the investment, we were working on some like wireframes for the product that we were building. And I remember I was like in my corner watching, and he called on me to like go design something on the board. And I was like sweating bullets up there doing it. But it was just really cool for him to like, reach out to this kid from Kansas, which by the way, he's from Nebraska, which is cool. And Ben is from Iowa. So we kind of have all three states there. But it was just really cool to kind of see that, like, hey, I'm interested in like what you're thinking, because you might uncover something that I've missed. But yeah, I think that the takeaway is like they're just regular people.
Yeah, no doubt. It sounds like they've got the mindset that has led them to success, and why, a big reason why you've been successful as well, kind of following that same mentality.
Sure.
So let's hear about this new endeavor that you mentioned at the beginning. Whatever you can or can't elaborate on, the floor is yours.
Oh, I'll be totally open about it. I've got no secrets. I've learned during my relatively short, but in Silicon Valley years, I'm like, people used to joke. I think I was like the 9th most tenured employee at Pinterest when I left. Like it's very much not a place that you stay, for that long. But in what I did see, secrets don't mean anything. People that are afraid to share things are probably suffering from imposter syndrome, is kind of what I've realized. Anyways, the product that I'm working on, it's called Moneyball.
Cool.
Like paying homage to the book and the movie. And tying it all back up, going back to Ev and Medium, and Tony, actually. I'm working on it with Tony Stellavine, and a really good friend of mine, Zach. And it's basically, it's a tool for authors and publications to make more money on Medium. So Medium has a really interesting monetization model where, like Netflix, they charge a flat fee per month. Theirs is $5 a month.
Okay.
And individual authors, Ev's vision for Medium I've heard described as to be the YouTube of writing, where anyone can go and just write content.
Very cool.
I don't know if that's the case now, but that's what it was kind of back in 2012, 2013. So I heard. And so authors kind of opt in to make a story behind a paywall. And so they get paid based on member reading time. So if I'm a member and I've read that article for 10 minutes, I don't know what I think I have an idea of what the algorithm is, but I won't share that. They get like a siphon of that, or a slice of that. And so, there are a good number of authors making six figures just writing on Medium. And so our product is kind of aiming to help them optimize that. So
wow.
It's a small business, but we've bootstrapped it. I'm working on it with buddies, and it should be something that, can more or less run itself down the road.
Very cool. Yeah, congrats. That's exciting.
Yeah, thanks, man. It's kept me sane during these times where I can't work because, like I said, I do work on my sleeve. But it has, with a 1-year-old, sleep is a little tough to come by.
Yeah, a little sporadic.
Uh-huh.
Well, that's exciting. I just kind of stumbled upon Medium in the last year or so, and have thought about kind of posting some of our content there in terms of like blog versions of Q&A with millennials and kind of doing that form. So I'll be interested to see how the business continues to succeed for you guys.
Definitely. And I will say, like, Ev, he's at Ev on Twitter. He recently posted a link to kind of how Medium has been doing. And if anyone is interested in writing at all, I go read the article. It makes an exceptional case for why you should consider writing on Medium. I'm very bullish on the future of the company, obviously. But like, Moneyball aside, check it out. Okay,
cool. Yeah, and I'll link to that in the show notes for that article you mentioned for anyone who's interested in reading it.
Great.
So on that note, where can people get in contact with you if they want?
Yeah, totally. I'm super active on Twitter. I'm at Connor on Twitter. So that's CONNOR. That links to my website, which has a link to my email. But if you're not on Twitter, my website is connor.me, but it's Connor without any O's. So CNNR.me. And then on there is a link to my email.
Beautiful. All right, folks, you heard it. Go do the thing and be bold, make bold decisions. Connor, thanks so much for your time on the Gen Y Leaders podcast.
Yeah, thanks so much. It was really great to be here.
That wraps up today's episode. We hope to have brought you some valuable key takeaways. Most importantly, whatever you learned, take action on it. Apply it to your life. Apply it to your career. Motivation and inspiration only come as a result of taking that first step. So if you're enjoying the podcast, don't forget to like and subscribe on whichever platform you found the show. You can also follow us on all the major social media platforms or contact us directly at genwhyleaders@gmail.com. That's GENWHY leaders@gmail.com. Until next time, I'm Eric Huey, and thanks for listening to the Gen Y Leaders podcast.